Hello everybody. It is an absolutely gorgeous, just gorgeous fall day out here today. And I am going to keep this video a little bit more brief. And it's pretty windy out, so I'm going to try and speak up, but I don't know how good the audio is going to be. I apologize. And this particular GoPro does not allow you to add an external mic or anything like that. So if I want to use the 360, I'm stuck with yelling into the wind. Well, I've tried to find a somewhat protected street from the wind, and it's still a little blustery out here, but it is fall. Let's get into the video anyway. And today I wanted to talk about why I don't use harnesses in training. I've made like specific videos in the past about halties and gentle leaders and things like that. But today I wanted to talk specifically about why I don't use any type of harness, body or head. So I'm just going to kind of go through this in point form and talk real quick about each of the reasons. And this is literally off the top of my head. I didn't really plan this morning. Just wanted to get a video out on my channel, keep things active, you know. So they're not in any necessarily like ranked order. We'll just go through. So one of the reasons, the harness gives the dog the advantage. They've got the strength advantage now. And another reason, you don't have any control. Like, you can just pull on the harness. So the only control you have is whatever physical strength you can exert against the dog's pulling. You also don't have good control in terms of like how you're going to guide a dog around on a harness, because it's typically clipped to their back or perhaps a front pull harness, but you don't really have a lot of guidance in order to steer the dog with the leash. And interesting on that note, I had a client ask me yesterday, is this called a lead or a leash? And I said, depends on who you ask. A lot of trainers will call that a lead, and the reason it's called a lead is because during training you can lead the dog around. And with a harness, you can't do that. That's why it's a lead and a collar, because now you've got some control over the, you know, the head of the dog, or at least control over the neck, so you can guide the dog. Very difficult to steer the dog around when the point that your leash attaches to is in the middle of the dog and their back. Another reason, it can actually, it doesn't make pulling unpleasant, and it can actually desensitize a dog against like a negative result for pulling. The dog is really like, because pulling is not uncomfortable on the harness, the dog not only has the strength advantage, but eventually they're just being conditioned to pull. Like, you're kind of training the dog to pull because they're getting away with it. This behavior is repeating itself, and it's not being stopped in any way because the harness is not going to do anything to stop pulling. Another reason that I don't like harnesses, head harnesses. So I don't like the way that head harnesses work. They basically control the head of the dog. There's usually something that goes over the top of the muzzle, and they typically clip under here. And that way when the dog goes to pull, it twists their head. That's what it's doing, right? I'm not dropping a bombshell on anybody here. That's how this thing works. It pulls their head. It also squeezes on the muzzle, and this is a very dense spot for nerve endings in the dog, so it's actually quite uncomfortable. And discomfort's not necessarily a bad thing in dog training. We need both pleasure and sometimes a little bit of discomfort to teach the dog to, you know, stop doing a behavior or stay away from something. But it's not the discomfort, it's more that I don't like that it twists the dog's head. That makes me very nervous. When a leash is attached to their head itself, that makes me nervous, because if they're pulling or lunging on the leash, they're twisting their head, and I don't like the way the tool works. And I've also seen it injure dogs in terms of like cutting them and tearing fur out across the bridge of their nose. So just not a tool that I use. No head harness whatsoever. I think a lot of people go to a harness because they feel like a leash and collar might be cruel. Holly, chickpea. And look, these are going to be people's personal opinions. There's nothing I'm going to do to change people's opinions. I don't think, anyway. It seems like nowadays people's opinions are so ingrained that they just put on blinders. They don't want to look at any other possibility. So I get it. Maybe somebody thought, wow, prong collar, I wouldn't do that. So I'll go to a harness, because when I put my dog on a flat collar or a martingale collar, they pull so bad they choke. I've heard of dogs vomiting and collapsing tracheas and all sorts of terrible stuff. And I agree, if a dog is pulling like that on a flat collar, no good. You've got to get them off the flat collar. But there's other types of collars that will help you. And I just don't see a harness as a training tool. That's really the key here. It's not a training tool, it's just a management tool, meaning you can put a leash on and just control your dog, but you don't really have the same type of control that you'd have on a leash and a collar. Okay, that being said, that's about all I wanted to say today, just to give people an idea of why I don't really use a harness and why I prefer to use a leash and collar. But at least that's the why I don't use the harness side of things. And I gotta let my dogs go to the bathroom, so I think I'm gonna end the video there. Recess. Free dog. And enjoy the rest of the walk on this beautiful autumn day with my dogs, and I'll see everybody in the next video.